Hello, good day everybody. Welcome back. Today we're going to demonstrate how to use the LOTCA test. The LOTCA test was originated in Israel, specifically with clients diagnosed with stroke as well as traumatic brain injury. The LOTCA test is used to assess a client's cognitive functioning as well as an individual's perceptual functioning in some of the tasks. So if you're an occupational therapist that is working with clients with stroke or brain injury or pathology that affects brain functioning, you can use it as a measure of how far this client is in treatment. So if you've been doing activities that focuses on improving concentration, memory and perceptual skills, you can use the LOTCA as a baseline assessment, right? You'll get a specific score, and from there, after intervention, you can do this test again to see how their condition has improved. For our purpose in work assessment, we will use the LOTCA test to give us an idea of the client's cognitive functioning, but also to forecast, based on the client's functioning or deficits in functioning, whether they would be able to cope in work that requires lots of thinking or perceptual skills, etc. If you think about somebody that is working as a clerk and you're using the LOTCA test and you had a brain injury or stroke, the test gives you an idea of whether this person would be able to concentrate, whether this person's perceptual skills will allow him or her to continue in a specific job. So for example, if this client falls out perceptually, gets a very low score, then you know that he might struggle with functional tasks such as organizing a schedule, arranging furniture, even tasks such as writing, taking notes, etc., etc. So what does this particular test entail? So it's got a book, it's got a manual that gives you step-by-step instruction in terms of how to use the test. Then it's got a test booklet. In this test booklet, it gives you various types of scenarios that links to the manual, and based on the scenarios, you will test the client's orientation, spatial perception, thinking operations, etc. The test also contains a number of cards that are color-coded, and on the cards it has got various classifications such as visual identification or overlapping figures for perception or figure ground, and that also links to the actual manual. So it's a lovely step-by-step guide, the manual, that allows you to do the test with your clients. Okay, and in the kit it contains blocks, scissor, comb, pegboard, puzzle, envelope, etc. So for the purpose of this demonstration, we are going to pretend that our client, Mr. X, has had a brain injury, and we're going to put him through these tests. I'm going to read the instructions step by step, right? So that you will be able to follow with me if you are going to demonstrate this test on your own using the manual. Okay, so obviously as an occupational therapist, let's take it, you've introduced yourself to Mr. X, and you've gone over his medical notes, and you've got an idea of why you want to use the LOTCA, right? So Mr. X, welcome to the session today. We're going to do a simple test to get an idea of your ability to writing tasks and to remember instructions, and it's actually quite fun. There's no specific set time for you to complete this test, so we'll do it at your leisure, but also we want you to complete the task. So if you are taking too long on a specific task, we might want to probe you to complete the task quicker. But as I said, there's no time components here, so you don't have to complete it in a specific time. Okay, so students, before we start off, I'd like to also just indicate that the client needs to always sit next to you in this test. The client will sit in front of you when you're doing the motor praxis and the spatial perception parts of the test. The reason why we are doing it like this now is for you to have a good view of my interaction with the client and to see what is happening on the table. So in essence, the client will sit side by side with the examiner, except for spatial perception and the praxis sub-tests. That is where they sit face to face. Okay, so we will start. Mr. X, what we're going to do now is I just want to give you an idea of whether you understand where you are. So we want to give you an idea of your orientation to time and where you are. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, where are you now? Where are you now? Let's pretend you are in a hospital environment.
In a consultation room.
You are in a consultation room. Good. So we are pretending we are at Pegboard Hospital and the client has indicated he's in a consultation room there. That's great. In what city are we now?
In Cape Town.
Cape Town. And tell me, where do you live?
Which area in Cape Town?
What is your exact address?
Kurut.
And do you remember the road that you live in?
Drakenstein Circle.
Okay, Drakenstein Circle. Where were you before you came here? Can you remember? After you had before you came to the hospital for you, when the doctors treated your injury, you can't remember. So colleagues, now I'm going to interpret that information, right? So the manual says that if your client has got memory disorders or language disorders, right, then you can provide 3 options for recognition. One of the options should be the correct answer. So for example, if I already know that the client is at Pegboard Hospital, you can give him the option, do you live, or where are you now? Are you at home? Are you at Pegboard Hospital or are you at school? And he needs to choose the correct answer. Now, one of the questions you must give him must be the correct answer. It can't be all the incorrect ones. Okay. So this manual is quite nice. It gives you an idea of how to score. It says here on page 14, the client is given 2 points for each correct answer. In the case where the client gave a correct answer, only in the multiple choice way, the client gets only 1 point. And then it says minimal performance is 1 point, and no correct answer or 1 correct answer by multiple choice. In this case, the client got, I will give this client 6 points because he's got 3, he answered 3 satisfactory questions. Okay, and on the answering sheet, the scoring sheet, you will find you can tabulate the scores from below. The first section you will see under orientation for place, you can tick off 1 all the way to 8. You give 8 points, which means good performance, and 1 to 3, which is low performance. So you can tick it there. And then also write down any comments based on how, if the client took very long to answer, or whether the client stuttered, or he couldn't remember, you write out those comments. It's usually very valuable afterwards when you're writing up your report, your work assessment report. Okay, let's move on to the next part, orientation to time. The examiner asks the client the following questions. So the first one I will ask to the client, what day is it today?
Tuesday.
Good. What month are we in?
January.
What year?
2017.
What season is it now?
Summer.
What is the hour now? What time do you think it's now?
12 o'clock.
Okay. How long have you been in the hospital?
Right.
Okay. And once again, if it's multiple choice answers that you need to give to the, or questions that you need to give to the client, give that, especially if they struggle to answer the questions, and you can mark them accordingly. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next section called visual perception. With visual perception, you will require cards and this test booklet. Remember, this test booklet I mentioned to you earlier. So you turn to page 1 in the test booklet, and the client is shown cards, 8 cards of everyday objects. So for this, I want you guys to take note that these are the blue cards. On the cards it says visual identification of objects. In the booklet it says OI cards. So there is some, the words is not the same as in the manual and on the cards. But for the purposes, you all know it's the blue cards that links to this part. So first of all, what you're going to do is the client is shown cards of 8 everyday objects: a chair, a teapot, a watch, a key, and the client is asked to name each object. So I will go according to the arrangement here. What is that?
2.
Okay. What is that?
Kettle.
Good. What is that?
Shoe.
What is that?
Scissor.
What is that?
Glasses. A watch. Bicycle.
That's good.
And a key.
Okay. So students, it's important to remember that with a stroke or brain injury, a client could have expressive or receptive problems, right? Receptive problems is if the client does not understand. So information goes in, he's listening, but in the brain somehow it doesn't make sense of the instruction that you are giving. Then you could have expressive problems, is the information goes into the brain understands and makes sense of what is being said or the instruction, but he cannot express himself due to this R3 or aphasia, any condition that affects speech, etc. So what they say, what you do in that case is, if the client has expressive problems and is not able to name the objects, he or she is shown the first 2 boards of the test booklet and is asked to point to the objects named in by the examiner. So for example, you will ask him, where is the chair? And he can just point to it. If he doesn't, he can't verbalize that this is a chair or bicycle, etc. Okay, so it's important to remember, you show the client the cards first, right? He names it, he does that, give him tick, full marks. If the client does not, he can't verbalize due to expressive problems, right? Then you show him the board and he needs to basically just point to where the bicycle is. So you can show him the car, bicycle or chair, and he will point to the board where this is that you are showing him. Okay. If he has receptive problems, so remember the instruction is where is this chair, but no information goes into the client's brain and it doesn't make sense of what you are saying, right? In that case, you show him the card, he takes the card in his hand and he puts it on the picture. So once again, you ask him, where is this? He takes the card and he can put it on the picture by exact matching. And then you could also score the client accordingly. Okay. For this part, in terms of scoring, it says 1 point is given if the client identifies only a few objects by exact matching. A few is interpreted as less than 4. A client is given 4 points. The client identifies all the objects by naming, understanding, etc. As I said, the interpretation of the scoring is in the manual, so you can follow it as is. The next section, what I usually like doing is once I've completed the use of a specific set of cards, I will put it away. So the next section focuses on shape identification. You will require a test booklet once again. You turn to page 5 and 8. See, this is what's on this pages. It's various shapes. So for this you need the yellow cards. It says visual identification of shapes, or VS on the cards. So it's of a square, triangle, etc. The examiner asks the client, what is the name of the shape? So we have the shape. What is the name of the shape?
Triangle.
Okay. What is the name of the shape?
The square.
Okay. And then you have, what's the name of the shape?
Circle.
Okay. So once the client has identified the shapes, right, you can once again give him the points. And if he has the same problem as before, expressive or deceptive aphasia, you follow the same process by using this board, and he needs to identify the shapes on the board. So for example, the manual says, if the client is unable to name the shapes because of expressive problems, the examiner asks the client to point to the target shape on the boards in the test booklet. The examiner says, show me the circle. If the client has deceptive problems and is unable to identify the shapes by understanding, the examiner shows him the 8 cards of similar shapes and asks him to point to the similar shape on the board by exact matching. Okay, so now we need to move to the next section. It's called overlapping figures, right? So for this you require test booklet 9 and 10. Turn to pages 9, 10 in the test booklet, and you use the green cards. On the card it says overlapping figures. Now from your perceptual lectures you will understand those perceptual terms such as figure ground, spatial relations, positioning space, etc. As you will find on this cards, it gives you gives the client a task of identifying what's on here, but if they can't do it, you as an occupational therapist needs to understand why they can't do it. So you can't just give a score of 0 or 3, you need to understand what are the brains causing the person not to know this. Important to remember, not all clients might be familiar with certain concepts. For example, you might have a client with a low education background that's not familiar with the use of equipment such as a saw or a pliers, etc. So they might not know the names of those objects. You need to then write down that you think that the problem is not due to cognition, but it could be due to education level. Okay, so let's start off. So the procedure is I ask the client to look at these pictures on here, and the first part is showing the card with fruit on it. So we ask the client, what do you see on this particular?
Pear, apple, and banana.
Good. So once the client has completed that, you ask him the next one. What do you see on here, Mr. X?
Saw, pliers,
Okay. So yeah. So you take note of that, and a classic example is now you need to clinically reason. That is actually a hoe that they use in the farming industry for cultivation of fruit, vegetables, etc. So from here I can deduce that the client perhaps knew all the others, but this is not a cognitive problem. It could perhaps be due to education, not education, but due to experience as well. Okay. So we can write that down as a comment that even though the client got, if you look at the scoring criteria, he got most of the figures correct except for one, and you may want to give the client 3. You think that the reason why I couldn't get full points was because of his experience perhaps in the use of that type of equipment. Okay. So let's move on. The next section is called object constancy, right? Over here, you're going to use pages 11 to 19 in the test booklet. 11 to 19, you will see it's various photographs on here of various everyday utensils. The client needs to identify what is on here, right? And same process, if the client struggles to express himself, right, then you can move to the next section where there's a big picture of the photograph and the client needs to identify on the photographs below what is on top. Okay, so let's start off. Mr. X, what do you see over here?
A fork.
Over here.
A back window of a car.
Yes, over there.
Telephone. And
Okay, so let's just say Mr. X had a problem in expressing that. So you will show him the main picture and ask him to identify what he sees here at the bottom. Mr. X, do you see something similar to this picture over here at the bottom in these four pictures? Is there something that's similar to the one on top? The car. Okay. So then take note of that. That was the same thing. It's a Toyota car. Toyota, you can see the as well. And then you can give him the point for that. And we'll see the other pages are the same. Okay, a fork. He looks at the utensils and he identifies what is similar to the top. Okay. So let's move on to the next section. So colleagues or students, what we do here is we are going to now sit face to face with the client, which we know already. Now remember, the instruction was in all the other tasks you sit next to the client, but for this specific one you must be face to face. So we are assessing at this stage spatial perception. So the examiner sits face to face with the client, and what I'm going to do now is I can now interpret, if this is my right hand side, I can tell the client that this is right hand side. This is my left hand side, I can tell the client that this is left hand side, right? So he can use what suits him for his right hand side. So I'll say, show me your right hand. Okay? Take note of that. Show me your left leg. Obviously there's no table now, so we have show me his left leg. Put your right hand on your left ear. Put your left hand on your right ear. So 1 point is given for each correct response, right? Up to a maximum of 4 points. So now we continue. The next section is called spatial relations. The examiner points to 4 different objects in 4 different directions, right? To the left, to the right, the front and the back in the room where we are sitting. And the client needs to answer. So I will say, what is on your, okay, on which side of you is the door?
my left.
Okay. On which side of you is the window?
This front.
Okay. On which side of you is the computer?
On my right.
Okay. And the last one, on which side of you is the mirror?
On my right.
Okay. And you give your client a point for each one of those. Okay. So now we move on to the next section, it's called spatial relations represented on a picture. So for this you need this old photograph over here. And what the client is going to do now is you're going to ask him various questions based on this picture. So this is a picture of a man sitting in front of a table and doing work tasks, right? So now I'm going to ask him, what is in front of the man?
Paper.
What is on the left side of the man?
File cabinet.
On what side of the man is the computer?
On his right hand side.
What is behind the man?
Window.
Okay. So 1 point is given for each correct response. And students, as a student once again, you need to understand if the client has got this wrong, what is the cause of it? And in perception we talk about spatial relations, where the client doesn't know the right side, or the top or the bottom. And there's something called laterality, where they don't know what is the right side from the left side. So you need to think about that as the possible reason why the client might be getting no marks, if that was the case. Okay, so the next section is called motor praxis. The client and the examiner sits face to face. The examiner instructs the client to imitate some movements. So imitate my movements as if you were looking in a mirror. If the client does not understand the instruction, students, then you can actually instruct the client to do movements as you are moving. So for example, I might say, when I move my left arm, you make the same movement. Okay, so you can tell them that. So now I'm going to do a movement. The first one is grasping the earlobe on the same side with the thumb and the forefinger. Okay, so obviously you don't tell them that instruction, I'm just verbalizing it. The next movement I'm going to do is, I'm going to place the palm of the hand, or the palm of the hand is placed behind the neck and then on the opposite shoulder. Okay, palm of the hand behind the neck and then on the opposite shoulder. Okay, so we do the same. Okay. The next one is the dorsal aspect of the hand is placed on the opposite cheek with fingers in extension. You need to know what's dorsal and ventral, students. Okay, there we go. The thumb opposes the middle and then the ring finger. The examiner repeats these movements 3 times. So the thumb opposes the middle and the ring finger. Like that. Remember diadokinesis in your P's lectures? This is similar to that. So he needs to do this 3 times. And if the client struggles with that, think back, what is the cause of it? Is it motor coordination? Is it the client doesn't understand the instruction? What is the cause of it? Okay. The next aspect is utilization of objects. And students, for this section, what you do is the examiner shows the client the following objects. It's of a comb, a scissor, and a paper, and an envelope. And what we do here is that you need to ask the client, show me how you use these objects. Right? For the use of the pencil and eraser, the examiner can say, draw a line on the paper and then erase it. So here I'm going to show the client a pencil, and he can, with the piece of paper, actually imitate drawing a line. Or, so I want you to see, if you should draw a line, how would you do that with a pencil? Just imitate it. Here's one that works. Okay, so now what you do, I want you to do with the rubber. Okay. And similarly for the use of a scissor or a comb, obviously the guy can imitate, he uses the comb to brush his hair, a scissor to cut objects out of, cut paper, etc. The next section, students, is symbolic actions. So here the examiner asks the client, show me how you brush your teeth. The examiner will ask the client to show the whole action from putting the toothpaste on the brush, bringing it to the mouth and brushing. So you're looking at abstract client's ability to think about something and imitate a particular action. So how do you brush your teeth? So if you should pretend that we've got a toothbrush and a toothpaste, just do the action of how to brush your teeth.
The toothpaste comes first, the water run out with the lid, and then brush your teeth.
How do you open a door with a key?
key in the lock, turn it and then use the handle to open the door.
How do you cut a loaf of bread with a knife?
I use my left hand to hold the loaf of bread and my right hand to cut the bread.
How do you use a telephone? Think about the whole procedure how you use a telephone.
I pick up the telephone first and dial the number and then it rings until someone answers on the other side.
So colleagues, it's also good to remember in this case that technology has moved on and people use cell phones. So you couldn't say how do you use a cell phone, because not many people has got the old traditional telephone in their homes or in their offices anymore. They use cell phones. If the action is correct, give the individual the mark. The next section is visual motor organization, and for all these tests you can time the client, right? You don't tell the client they need to finish it within 5 seconds or 20 seconds, you just time the client how long they take to do the actual movement or the actual task. So the first one is, I'm going to show you 5 forms. Please copy each form on a paper. So the examiner shows the client these forms. Starting off with the simple form, and it has to be in this order. Firstly, a circle. So Mr. X, would you perhaps be able to copy the circle for me? Would you want on a piece of paper? Okay. The next one is this form, a triangle. Next one is a diamond. The next one is a cube. And the next one is a complicated shape. Okay. And then you score the client accordingly and also take note of the time, how long it took to perform the task. The next section, students, that focuses on the reproduction of a two-dimensional model. What you will require here, so you need to make use of this test booklet again. You're going to turn to page 20 in the test booklet. You'll see that's the shape on page 20. And you will ask the client to design or place shapes. You see these blue shapes, a circle, a triangle, a square, etc. So you'll say, construct this pattern beside the design. So important to say, construct that pattern that's in the booklet next to this design. So I want you to put this in the same image as what you see there in the table. Yes. If the client had a problem with that, then you can ask the client to position these shapes on the actual board. So they would put it there, and the one there, over there, etc. Once again, if the client struggles to do this, ask yourself, what is the cause of it? Is it a perceptual problem? In this case, can the person orientate in their mind the square or the shape in this pattern so it fits here? What is the cause of it? You will be surprised. Client with a traumatic brain injury, severe TBI, or that just had a stroke in the acute or subacute stages will struggle with these tasks. And it will give you an idea, if you're a treating therapist, what to focus on in your intervention. Okay, and then you score the client accordingly. The next aspect is the pegboard construction. So here the examiner puts in front of the client a pegboard, and it's on page 21 in the test booklet, and pegs, and the design of a triangle. The examiner gives the instruction, construct this pattern. And obviously this is now done, this pattern is simulated in the pegboard. And here's your pegs. construct the same pattern, position it in the same way. And it's over there. Good. So important, colleagues, in terms of the students, in terms of the point system, 1 point is given if the client is unable to perform, and then 2 points is given if the client is able to reproduce only the vertical and horizontal lines, but nothing in between. And so you go on until you give the client 4 points, which is good performance. Do you mind putting that back in there for me, please? The next section, students, is called colored block design. Here the examiner shows the client a design of colored cubes and the actual blocks. The examiner instructs the client to construct the design. So there we go, that is the design of these blocks. And Mr. X, I'm going to give you some of these blocks, and I want you as best you can to position the blocks that I give you similar to what I've done on this page. Okay, so we'll check the layout, students. Have a look at whether the client used all the blocks. Have a look at whether the client left a little space. It's usually a little tricky, there's usually a little space in between the green and the orange blocks. That also gives you an idea of the client's perception and how the ability to interpret what they see. Two-dimensional, from two-dimensional to three-dimensional. Okay, thank you for that. And then you score the client accordingly. The next section focus on just plain block design. Similar task. The client is given some plain blocks and he needs to design or rearrange them similar to what he sees in this two-dimensional drawing. Okay, so it's important, oh, the client is not busy. Okay, so then you ask the client to double check his drawing whether this is a reflection of what he sees on the paper. And usually you will find that there might be an extra block that is left. But you must ask the client to double check it, so let's have a look there. Yeah, there's usually one block that's left. Okay, good. And you look at the scoring procedure and you mark the client accordingly. So the next section, students, on the reproduction of a puzzle. And that's on page 24 in the test booklet. So what your instruction is, examiner shows the client the design of a colored butterfly and the corresponding 9 pieces of this puzzle. Examiner then instructs the client, construct the puzzle on the design. Okay? Not next to the design, on the design. So here we're going to give the client, Mr. X, these puzzle pieces. And now he can construct the puzzle on the design. You look at the end product and you mark the client accordingly. And it's important for you to know sometimes you will find all of these various puzzle pieces in different positions. And once again, if that is like that, then it's indicated the client might have a perceptual problem. And then you need to think as an OT, how does this perceptual problem affect this client if Mr. X needs to go back to work? And Mr. X, for example, is an administrator, what type of struggles and challenges would they have in doing administration or administrative type of tasks? Okay, so Mr. X, the next aspect is going to be for students. The client is going to fill in the numbers on this clock. Gives you an idea of abstract thinking as well. And he's going to position the time with the arms of the clock at about, let's have a look here, 10:15. So once again, we'll instruct the client, he needs to put the numbers on the clock, he needs to think about the clock that they have in the kitchen or clock that he had when he was small. And then he needs to put the arms of the clock at a specific time, 10:15. Okay, Mr. X will be able to do that. Students, in the test booklet you will see the clock, and you can make photocopies of this, and the client can utilize the photocopy. Okay. 10:15. That's right. Okay, so then you will just check that quickly before we move on to the next section. If everything is okay, you give the client a full score. If there's any concerns, you mark the client according to the manual. Okay. The next section focuses on thinking operations. And here, once again, you can also take note of timing. You can time the client while doing the individual tasks. So your first task focuses on categorization. So I'm going to put these tasks, or these cards, apologies, in a specific order. In front of the client. So it's of a boat, helicopter, plane, bicycle, a ship, a train, a car, a hammer, scissors, needle, screwdriver, wheelbarrow, a hoe, a rake, and then there's a last one, a sewing machine. Now obviously, for the test purpose, I've verbalized what I put on the table. You don't need to do that. You just place the cards in front of the client in this order. Okay. So you will ask the client, can you sort these cards into shapes that you think, or in groups that you think are similar? You can do that. Okay, so if there's an indication the client has completed, you can ask him, name the groups that you've positioned these cards in.
That's transportation, this is tools, and that is to do any needlework or clothing or fabric work.
Okay. Is there any other way that you can group them into smaller groups, or another way that you can group them? So tell me about your new groups.
This is taking different types of transportation. This is flying, and that is on sea, and this is on the track or
okay, good. And so colleagues or students, if you have a look at the way the client is positioned it, you look at the scoring criteria. I'm happy that he's positioned it in a logical way. Even the smaller groups, in this case we'll give the client 5, but if you struggle to do that, you can give the client from 1, which is unable to perform, to about 3, which means you could do both tasks. You could group it firstly on its own and thereafter also into smaller groups. Okay, would you mind just stacking it up for me, please? The next section is called HISCA, Object Classification. So here there are different types of shapes. It's an arrow shape, looks like this. There's an oval shape, which looks like this, I think, yes. And then there's a quarter donut, which I think, oh, it's the other way around. This is the oval shape, and this one is the quarter donut. Okay, and there are different colors. Cream, you can say, or white, cream, light brown, and then dark brown. So you will ask the client to position these various shapes into what he thinks are similar. Or you can ask, you place this randomly in front of him and ask them, can you position him into groups that are alike or similar, and see what the outcome is. Okay, so why are they the same? Why do you put them in these groups?
all the same shapes.
So take note, students, he's given one criteria, shapes, right? And if you're happy with that, you can ask him, can you place them in different groups that are similar? So why are they similar?
Same color.
Okay. So then, students take notes. He's indicated firstly that they are similar in shape. Then they indicated now that they are similar in color. And then a third criterion that you could also look out for is if you put it in a specific pattern that makes sense to him. And he says that they are the same in terms of color, in terms of the way you position them in this pattern, as well as in